Today, groceries like these account for no more than 1% of total sales in Britain, but they're already available in 1,000 stores, and tomorrow Lipton's and other chains join the bandwagon. They're called generics. They're very big in the United States, and there are many who believe that they could be the shape of shopping to come. The main advantage of this basic no-frills approach to marketing is a dramatic reduction in price, and the squeeze on family budgets over the last 2 years has certainly enhanced their down-to-earth charms. But are they really all they're cracked up to be? John Watkinson's been shopping around.
The days of shopping around for your favourite brand of cocoa, can of beans or cat food could be on the way out. Shoppers are being enticed away from their old habits by a range of products called generics. They're packaged in the brightest of colours. The message couldn't be more obvious, and prices are rock bottom. Today, these generics represent the latest challenge in the battle for the housewife's shopping basket.
We think it's something that's going to stay with us. It's not just relevant to recessionary times. The value opportunity it represents to consumers is something they're going to want in the future as well as now.
I don't think it's very soundly based. I think that the own label movement is very soundly based. I think generics are in many cases people just jumping on a bandwagon and trying to do own label but differently, and in most cases not doing it very well.
Till now, shoppers have hardly been short on choice. There's the brand leaders which have traditionally dominated the market, and what the trade calls own labels. In recent years, supermarkets like Fine Fare have been selling their own lines. These now take more than 20% of the market. But in Fine Fare, there's a third choice. In August 1980, they launched their yellow pack generic range, simple, basic commodities with no frills. There are now more than 90 different lines. Their weight and size is not always exactly the same as branded goods, but all show a marked difference in price. Take these beans. The brand leader cost 21.5 pence. The Fine Fare own brand is a penny cheaper. The generic range is only 17 pence. A 20% saving like this is common with generics. Fine Fare thinks these sort of reductions are what the customer wants.
At the end of 1979, we were very conscious that the UK economy was slipping into deep and we thought very prolonged recession. We wanted an active strategy to help our shoppers fight the recession that was looming, and generics seemed to us to be possibly the answer.
In retailing, if a company is standing still, it is in fact slipping back. So it's very difficult to define the difference between grabbing share and beating back. Now, of course, we have a dual situation, competition from discounters intensifying, the recession, of course, deepening, and so the time is, of course, ripe for accelerated development of generic supermarket products.
Carrefour of France was the first to launch generics in 1976. Today, they take 15% of their sales. Carrefour was rapidly followed by other supermarkets on the continent. But generics really took off in America. More than 10,000 stores right across the country now carry this range of product. In Britain, international stores were first in the field in 1977. They've been followed by Fine Fare, Allied Suppliers and Tesco. Tesco entered the market last August in Scotland. After a spectacular advance in the 1970s, Tesco's profits fell by £2 million to 35 million last year. The move down market into value lines has been seen as a way of winning back lost sales.
Scotland is probably the best test market for us to use because it's a closed market. We can advertise on the television, we can advertise on national press and local press, and we can measure the results very accurately. We will still be selling the top brand names, we'll still be selling our own label, which we are pitching quality-wise at the brand quality and at the brand level. And this is a new range, it's an addition to anything that we currently have in the store. It's extra for our customers.
Quality is just as good as the named products.
Do you know, it's something about yellow and black. I don't like it. I always think it's like wasps and things that they repel me.
So why have you bought so much yellow pack?
Because they're the same quality as the other packs and they're cheaper.
On most ranges, prices are down by a fifth. and on some it's as much as 50%. The evidence shows that these sort of price reductions appeal to shoppers of all classes. So how are the price cuts made? There's little or no advertising after the initial launch. Bulk purchase keeps the distribution costs low, and significant savings can be made by doing away with fancy boxes and labelling. But it's the food manufacturer who's bearing the brunt of supermarket price cutting. In their Edinburgh factory, Burton's make biscuits not just for themselves, but for Marks & Spencer, Fine Fare and Tesco. Manufacturers can hardly afford to turn away orders from big buyers like these, whatever the terms offered.
Well, essentially, because Fine Fare are one of our biggest customers, and if we hadn't supplied them, then they will undoubtedly have gone to somebody else.
The price the manufacturer gets on the generic range is less than that on the own label or brand biscuits. And despite inflation, there's hardly been any price increases for biscuit makers in the last 18 months. There's still spare capacity about in the industry, so the bargaining position of the supermarkets is strong.
We are certainly squeezing manufacturers very hard. We make no apologies for that. That's something that we believe we have to do if we're going to defend our customers from the effect of inflation and price increases and so on. What I would say to you is that not a single manufacturer who has been supplying us with yellow packs has actually asked to give up the business. We have a queue of manufacturers outside our doors with ideas for new yellow packs, and while many manufacturers were sceptical at the beginning of the process, an awful lot of people want to get on board now. So I think the acid test there is, are we having difficulty in finding people to manufacture? And the answer is no.
Manufacturers' margins are being squeezed, but is there a loss of quality as well? Fine Fare's products are tested at the Western research laboratories to check that the mix and quantities come up to standard. There are requirements laid down by law and by the food industry itself, but there's still scope for supermarkets to set their own standards. It's here that critics say corners can be cut on quantity and quality. In top-grade washing-up liquid, for example, there's 40% active detergent. Most lines have more than 25%, but some generics fall as low as 10%. Whilst Fine Fare admit that there are differences between generics and brand names, they have no doubt about the overall quality of their range.
In many cases, the quality level is very, very similar indeed to the brand leader because we've managed to achieve very substantial savings in packaging. In every case, we have a specification, we test against it, and most important of all, because I think the consumer is the final arbiter of whether the quality is satisfactory, we guarantee it. There is an unequivocal money-back guarantee if the consumer doesn't like what she buys.
Sainsbury reject generics. They rely on their own label products, and it's a formula that's worked. Last year, sales were up by 28%.
I think the biggest single difference between us and most retailers is the quality of the product and the value for money in combination. Now, part of that is own label, part of it is a very high volume of trade, and part of it is just standards on quality and hygiene and the product itself. And no one factor is the answer. And I think other retailers looking at it say, a lot of it is own label. What can we do about own label? Can we find a different twist on own label? And are looking at products down to a price. And I don't think people want a product just at any price. They want a product of a reasonable quality at a reasonable price.
At Fine Fare, lines like beans, biscuits and coffee are now outselling brand leaders and their own label. For the consumer, they bring an obvious price bonus at a time when the recession is biting deep into family budgets. But will they survive when the upturn comes?
There's no magic about generics. It's a clever marketing exercise. It isn't anything very much more than that.
Once they gain increased customer acceptance, I think a company that tries to withdraw from generics could be in very serious trouble indeed.
So you think they're here to stay?
I do indeed. I think they're here to stay, and in fact I think they're here to increase.